Let's go now, a little life out here. What the hell's going on out here? Hey, what about that now?
Hello everybody, welcome to the UK Packers podcast. As usual, I'm your host, that's the Diddy NFL on the Twitter box. It's Quick Snaps. It's Quick Snaps, everybody, so... quick snappage for your giant package. I did get asked at the Dublin meetup, was quick snappage for your big package the tagline for the podcast? Of course it isn't. There's no way it could even be. We're coming up against the Bengals, and according to everybody on the interweb, we're going to win. You know, I mean, the bookies have us as 14.5 point favourites. Is that, can I say that? That's a lot. And I'm always squeamish when they give us such a high pointage. But then you look into it and you see that the Packers are just amazing. And they match up great against the Bengals. But before I get there, the London Huddle event is on in Redwoods in London on Saturday. I'm going to be talking with Super Bowl champion centre. The centre who played with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. And made the change from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. In fact, made the change from Aaron Rodgers to Brett Favre back to Aaron Rodgers. Because he would have been on the scout team with Aaron Rodgers and then been the starting centre for Brett Favre. I'm labouring the point, but I'm just saying he's the Super Bowl ring. He's bald and bearded and he's got an awful lot of wisdom. So me and Scott Wells will be on stage. I've got some fun games to play. It's an official Green Bay Packers event. There'll be Green Bay Packers merch and swag, and it's the first of many. It's the first of the official release for the Packers coming over to the UK. The Ireland one was a stormer, absolute ripper of a success. We'd 610 people, which was the absolute maximum, and we had to turn people away. So it's free, absolutely free, and don't worry if you don't have your RSVP, if it's too complex for you, but do try download it, because when you have that downloaded and you go in and you scan it, you can come away with signed merchandise, actual signed Packers merchandise, for absolutely nothing. So it's great. So get that RSVP and it allows us to plan and all that kind of jazz, right? But it's going to be great. We're going to be doing games. There's going to be Wisconsin food. There's going to be signed merch. There's going to be messages from players. There's going to be Scott Wells there as the player. And you can do... Hold on, you doing it? You can do quick snaps to my face in the event as well. It's going to be great. And then we're doing content around the stadium. So if you're not going to be at the event, but you are going to be at the game, let me know and we'll put out sort of a beacon and come find me. And I'll be doing official Green Bay Packers social media stuff outside the stadium. So if you want your mush on the officialpackers.com stuff, hang about. Anyway, let's get back to this Bengals game. Really weird. Joe Flacco has been signed from the Browns and he's come across to the Bengals because the Bengals couldn't trust Jake Browning at backup quarterback, now starting quarterback, when Joe Burrow went down with turf toe, which needed surgery. I looked into turf toe because it sounds silly. You know, it's one of those things where I'd hate to suffer from it solely because you'd say it to someone and they go, lol. But it's really severe. Jesus, it's a bad injury, and certainly the one that Joe Burrow had, it's exceptionally bad. Absolutely impacts mobility. So Jake Browning was in there. He was a bit of an interception machine. Now he's quite good last year. But then they went out and got Joe Flacco, who's also an interception machine. And we faced Joe Flacco, if you'll remember. There's all these storylines that Joe Flacco beat the Packers a couple of weeks ago. He didn't. They won in spite of Joe Flacco, and that was just an absolute crap to bed performance. So there's an awful lot, and I'm always, again, very squeamish about, special teams have been poor, so this is the game where they have to get it right. They don't have to do anything. I mean, if they're incapable, they cannot, right? And that's the same with the defense. The defense, it's one of these sort of games, will they bounce back and they play better? Yeah, it's trope, really good, right? But, this is sports and this is real life. So you go out and you play. Just because you want to play better doesn't mean that you do. However, this is a real chance for the optics to be nice, right? Because the Packers defense didn't get much pass rush, and hopefully they rectify that. They're coming up against one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. Now, again, I said that about Dallas, and they had a rookie in there, and they had backups in there, and they still did a very commendable job. In fact, I think the MVP of the Dallas game was the Dallas offensive line. So we know what the drill is going to be here, right? I mean, so let's take a look at it. Joe Flacco's thrown, 2 touchdowns this year. He's behind a really horrendous offensive line. However, he does have weapons, and I mean the weapon in Jamar Chase, who's starting to break out, because no matter how bad the quarterback play is, and we've seen that with the Commanders and Terry McLaurin, and we've seen it with the Jets, no matter how bad the quarterback play can be, if you're an outstanding receiver who's getting open, obviously you should have a massive, massive year, but you just have a big year and get over 1,000 yards, because you just can't hold a good receiver down. So, the key to this game obviously is getting that pressure on Joe Flacco and not allowing time for him to drop back and throw to Jamar Chase and get that mileage. Our secondary was massively tested against the Dallas Cowboys and failed, through the air. And, so to rectify that, we need to not give Joe Flacco time. I just don't know reality if Joe Flacco can come in with 3-4 days practice, start for an NFL team, and do any way well. Between learning the playbook and having to keep it simple, so there's going to be very simple stuff. And I'm sure after seeing Dallas' success, the key to success against this Packers pass rush is don't let it be a pass rush, right? Get the ball out very, very quickly. So I think it's going to be wide receiver and running back screens. I think it's going to be dink and dunk stuff. And I think there will be a couple of bombs thrown in. Even the Bengals run game hasn't been great. And they're down the bottom on all the metrics, which is exactly why the Packers go into this game 14 points favourite. When you look at all the sort of metrics, so they're 29th in points per game, they're absolutely last in yards per game, they're absolute last in time of possession per game. And that all comes down to their offense not being able to stay on the field. So obviously you don't rack up that time of possession if you can't be out there and extend drives. So that's the way it is. Look, they've a danger man, and he cannot be ignored in Trey Hendrickson. Just an absolutely outstanding player. Led the NFL as their sack leader in 2024. He had 3.5, I think, or 4 sacks more than Myles Garrett in second place. So he's a standout guy, and this is a table tilter. This is a field tilter. This is a guy who can wreck games. So with the Packers offensive line really struggling, obviously they're going to key in on Trey Hendrickson. Now, the other thing that the Bengals are very good at is coming down with interceptions. Again, that's getting that pressure up front to being opportunistic. But Jordan Love, by and large, is exceptional now at mining the ball. So hopefully that won't happen. Again, it's the same old, right? It's going to be predicated on setting up the run. So Josh Jacobs is coming off his best running performance against Dallas. So I'd expect him to come out in this game after, an additional week's rest, and then to scheme some nice things for him, particularly because just basically run away from Trey Hendrickson, right? We've got Matthew Golden out there applying his trade. He's slowly getting better. Romeo Dobbs has hands of steel. There's not so much problems with drops, I guess. And then we've the, sort of added bonus news, which is not going to impact the Packers for a good many weeks, is Christian Watson is going to be, coming off his injury and out on the PUP and working out with the guys, which is great. So, look, all of the metrics, Bengals offense poor, they've got Joe Flacco there, but they still have dangerous weapons. Let's not underestimate them here. We should also pick up on pass rush because their offensive line is one of the worst in the NFL, which is exactly why Browning wasn't doing very well. And then on defense, they've been pretty poor on defense as well. They've got some stars. They've, been successful with coming down with the ball. They're, I think, way up there in the top 5 for interceptions. But otherwise, it's been pretty one-sided since Joe Burrow went down with that toe injury. And, they've the 3rd or 5th worst defense in the NFL. So if there's ever a game to right the ship after a bye week, getting healthy, it's this team, because on every matchup that you look at, it's very favourable for the Packers. It's the heart attack pack. We know it doesn't go that way. We know teams that we should beat, like the Dallas Cowboys. It was Spider-Man meme. Defenses weren't doing anything and they were putting up points. That all comes down to, great quarterback play for Dallas, and the same can be applied to Joe Flacco. And the fact that they had the faith to bring him in. This is a guy who's won the Super Bowl. He's got still a cannon of an arm, and he can make things happen. And he's not going to be as sort of naive and fresh as someone coming in out of nowhere. But again, he's playing with brand new players. He has no chemistry. He doesn't know what they're going to do, which is why I think they keep this game very, very simple. So look, that's about it. I mean, we're tipped to win this game, and I think we have to win this game if we're going to keep our season on track. You know, between starting off really, really well, going down to the Browns by 3 points, and then drawing against the Cowboys. Favourable for us that we still sit second in the NFC North, even though the Vikings have one extra win than we do because of that sort of win-loss percentage when it comes to that tie. So look, I want this to be a normal dispatching of a team that we're supposed to beat. It's in Lambeau Field again. So look, everything's tipping towards a Packers win, and I hope we go back to week 1 and week 2 comfortableness. We see Micah Parsons, Rashan Gary, Lucas Van Ness all absolutely create havoc and sort of pin Joe Flacco in, who was massively underwhelming in that Browns game. So this thing of him coming in and, you know, beating the Packers again, like I said, it's in spite. Look, we looked at the injury report as well. There's some concerning things there. One of the most concerning is Brandon McManus, the fact that he's got a quadricep injury. So he's limited participation, so they're keeping an eye on him. So weirdly, this game could come down to more special teams faux pas or management, and we'll have to see if Mark McNamee, the Irishman, ends up going in for McManus with him injured, or what happens. I mean, if they don't activate him and they go out there, do we see Dan Whelan trying to kick field goals if he's really out? God knows. And let's hope that it doesn't come down to a tight score where that actually matters. And of course, we don't want to see any punts, and the only kicks that we want to see are extra points. So maybe it won't be an issue anyway. But look, come on down to London on Saturday and pop in and see me and the official Green Bay Packers, and you know, join in all the entertainment and get some. There's a big massive merch table that's going to be in the place. There's a 360 camera, there's a photo booth where you can pop on cheese heads and do all that fun stuff. So we've got some great games planned for you, and then of course we'll be outside the game getting content as well. So if you're not going to the event, I'd love to see you outside the stadium in Tottenham. But anyway, that's me. That's the Diddy NFL on the Twatterbox, and at UK Packers on socials. And hopefully I'll see you all on Saturday. Go Pack, go!